Well, hello, and welcome to the new stream of content hype show here at the Plos Bros podcast. Blah, blah, blah. I can't talk right now.
Prodcast?
Podcast. Hello and welcome. This is the new hype show of the new content coming to Disney Plus this year. Welcome to the Plos Bros podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sam Govan, and with me is my other co-host, Matt Mellish. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Sam. Wow. We got a lot to discuss in this episode. We have all the new Star Wars and Marvel content, which we're going to try our best to touch upon. We're going to try to do it all, and it's going to be very interesting. There's so many notes that you have, I know, and all my information's up here because I don't do notes. But
well, folks, fasten your life jackets because there's a flood of content coming your way.
So many series and movies. It's insane. This is the most content I think that they've ever announced for Star Wars. I don't know about Marvel. I feel like we've gotten more from Marvel at one point in the past, especially when they were discussing what they were going to do with phase 1, 2, and 3 in like the very beginning.
They're very famous for those timeline pictures. Like at Comic-Con, Kevin Feige would be on stage and be like, here is this movie and this movie and this movie. And Star Wars has been like, we're going to shotgun you at random times and just give you a bunch of stuff all at once.
And they leave it to the fans to Photoshop those images themselves. I was surprised that they didn't have one of those Marvel images this time around. That would have definitely helped put things a little better into perspective, especially with all of these characters coming that we've never really been fully introduced to yet, more or less in the comics. But I feel like more people know who Iron Man is than Ms. Marvel, from my perspective, at least.
Yeah.
It just was a little bit kind of all over the place for what they're doing in the timeline, but it's going to be interesting on how it all weaves together, since the MCU is very famous for allowing all of their content to be kind of tied together.
It's just going to get a lot more difficult, but at the same time, they're bringing back a lot of really interesting characters from the past, like Abomination. It's interesting to think about in the long term, bringing these characters back in, but also making new stories for the future. So it'll be exciting, and we'll get to that towards the end of the show. But I think to head off the show, we're going to start off with the Star Wars stuff, which majority of our audience covers, but we're going to be turning into a Marvel more or less podcast here in January when WandaVision starts. Buckle yourselves up because we're just going to slowly just go with what's new and coming out. So
it's going to be a roller coaster ride, to say the least. Woo, woo, woo,
woo.
We got a lot to cover. Let's start off with Star Wars. What do we have coming out first down the pike?
First off the bracket, we have freaking Bad Batch. We got a really awesome trailer last night, which I watched in the back of a secondhand clothing store because I was out of service, and then we stopped there on our way home, and I am completely speechless. I watched it probably 4 times now.
You were famous for watching the Force Awakens trailer, the first teaser.
In the makeup in a Target on Black Friday, yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty solid story for you, so it's in your brand to have this be in a secondhand clothing store. So
oh yeah, I can remember where I watched almost every major Star Wars trailer at this point. One in the dining hall on campus when I was in college, one in work trucks.
I made the Last Jedi trailer, I was an RA at the time, into a programming event. I ordered a pizza, we were watching I think it was a football game. Yeah, I made it into an event and got some points for it. So hey, it works. Bad Batch looks amazing. It is seemingly Clone Wars Season 8, or more or less an anthology from that famous series that we all know and love. If you haven't seen the Clone Wars yet, you're really missing out. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of unique stories here and stuff we're going to reference here that you're going to be like, what is Zygeria? What are the slavers of Zygeria? You're missing out a really awesome storyline there. So many awesome storylines, stuff we might not even touch here. It's definitely worth your while to invest in the 140 episodes or whatever of Clone Wars that there are.
And it ties into Mandalorian and other Star Wars canon that really does matter for the saga as a whole, so definitely check it out. I couldn't imagine never seeing Clone Wars, so even for
we're the generation that grew up with it.
Yeah, even for older fans, you can still love it, and part of the reason is nostalgia, right? But from an adult perspective, I appreciate it honestly probably more so than I did as a kid, even because you pick up on certain things that I never did before.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, Dave Filoni didn't invent the storyline of a Predator, and you're like, wait, as an adult, I guess I know that he just made the Trandoshan as the Predator and as a Jedi the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, they definitely use thematic elements from other franchises and films that tie in well. First off, what did you think of that trailer overall? Let's deep dive as much as we can and then get on to the next thing. That way we're not spending too much time on one item here.
And this is probably what I have the most stuff about is the Bad Batch, just because we saw so much and there's so much potential for it.
That is fair.
And I'm very passionate about Rogue One stuff, so I want to talk about Andor a little bit too. As far as Bad Batch, it opens up on their ship coming to Kamino. And like I mentioned, I've watched it a few times now, and every time it seems like there's something up with the platforms on Kamino. Like they're not like straight up and down. So I encourage you to go back and look and see. Maybe prove me wrong, but it looks like the place is a little more run down than it was in the past. So maybe it's after the Battle of Kamino, as we never saw it again after the Battle of Kamino. So maybe that's still in ruins from that or something else. You know, maybe it's been a year or so since, and Kamino's kind of.
We did see Kamino with the Fives arc when he goes back there.
I forgot. Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily looks run down for me. So you tell us in the comments what you think about Kamino. It looks fine. It's just stormy weather. Welcome to Kamino. You know, your typical rainy day there. I think there's something up with what's happening on the planet more than the actual facility itself. And maybe I'll be proven wrong. Who knows? But the way I take the shots of Kamino in this trailer, you know, you see the empty training center. There's a shot where they are training it seems like, where the Bad Batch is fighting droids that look much like the Dark Troopers or that model we saw in Rebels of that early model of the Dark Trooper that are fighting Thrawn. So maybe they're doing some training. I don't know why. We also get shots of the Emperor speaking among all the other clones there with the Bad Batch.
That's a speech from episode 3, so I don't think that is, you know what I mean, like where Padme says is how democracy dies, you know?
Yes.
That is just a recording, kind of like, I feel like in Resistance when they watch Starkiller Base go off, like I feel it's the same kind of thing, like they're just a giant live stream party, and they're all watching that happen.
I wonder what that chat looks like.
Like, oh man, I can't wait for the Empire. It's going to be so great. I think that part of it is it might be a flashback of some kind. Like I think that they're going to go into that training facility and they're going to have kind of like the facility is going to be not abandoned, like I think run down, and they're going to go in there and have flashbacks to their training when they were treated like crap because they were different. And then they're going to be like, well, we're the ones that survived because we were different. I honestly think that's going to play into it, because I think this show is really going to push the fact of just because you're different doesn't mean that you're not worth it. And that's what the Bad Batch, I think, ultimately has always meant.
Yeah, and especially when we see the Empire coming together and that shot where all the clones are standing there watching the speech, buying into what Palpatine's saying, but the Bad Batch stands there with their own armor painted separate colors. Everybody else is gray, black, and white, but they certainly stand out. I don't think they necessarily are buying what he's saying. I think at that point, maybe the other clones have had their chips triggered. I don't know where the Bad Batch stands with that happening, or separately Echo. What is interesting, like you said, that thematic element where it looks to be that we'll have the Bad Batch almost at odds after the rise of the Empire with the other clone troopers who seemingly become stormtroopers in the near future.
Yeah, and if like they're hunting them down, maybe, I'm not sure what that initiative is. I'm definitely interested to see what their lifestyle is like, as you know, because this whole show, they've told us, is designed to be what happens to the clones and what is the purpose of a soldier whose sole purpose of existing is being a soldier when you're not needed anymore.
And I think there is an element that, so we know what happened to Fives, where he understood what the chips were about. He gave Rex some idea of that, and I almost think that there might have been a conversation off screen where Rex and Echo talk about what happened to Fives, and he lets him know some of this information, and maybe Echo has the knowledge to remove that chip in his head and tells the Bad Batch to do the same. And it's almost as if they have that information and the Empire doesn't want that info leaked to other people, and the clones are trying to get rid of the Bad Batch because they know too much, and they're hunting them down because they didn't carry out their orders.
It's perfectly possible, and that's what's so cool is that we really don't know. Kind of like Mando. I mean, we have these images of things blowing up and ships going to planets, but we don't really know a whole lot of. It looks really cool, and it's in the Clone Wars style. I think you and I talked about this last night when we were, calling each other out of hype, talking about like the legacy of Fives and his ability to just really push that his sacrifice wasn't in vain, and maybe that it would be really neat to see that conversation between, because there's still times between the Battle of Anaxes and the end of the war. So there's still time that Echo could contact Rex, and it would be really cool to see the Bad Batch also in their unfinished arc on Kashyyyk.
Yes.
So
I think we will. Personally, I think this series is going to start right after we leave off with them in the Clone Wars, midway through, depending on how long it is. I'm thinking it's going to be a shorter series, much like the length of the Clone Wars was when we got it, season 8 of it, or season 7 rather. And then I think it's going to go past Order 66 when the Empire rises to power. Maybe towards the end is when they take off their armor and leave it behind for a new life of something of a mercenary bounty hunter.
Well, I think it's tough to tell because in this trailer you see both Hunter and Wrecker with their armor off and new outfits, and I think Wrecker's outfit is very interesting with like the weird hat, like the Cad Bane hat.
He looked like a farmer.
Yeah, Cad Bane's gonna kill him for his hat, like that poor Ithorian in the box.
Like we said, we're going to reference things that you aren't going to have a clue about until you watch that 140
And even if you've seen
series.
even if you've seen the Clone Wars, you're going to be like, what is he talking about?
Hopefully the pictures help that I'm throwing up here.
We'll get to talking about Zygeria here. I'm trying to think of where was Zygeria when we last left it?
Their queen was dead. Right?
Did the Separatists take Zygeria over?
I think...
Or was it just like a...
It was never freed. When we left Zygeria, it was from the episode Escape from Kadavo, I want to call it. Maybe I'm wrong. Where they free the prisoners.
That's the last episode of the arc.
They free the prisoners that they were holding as slaves. And I'm pretty sure the Separatists are still in control of it because they barely escaped.
Yeah, because Anakin is actually still on Zygeria when the Queen dies, and then he steals the ship with Ahsoka, right? And then they fly to Kadavo, where Obi-Wan and Rex are.
Yes.
And then Plo Koon meets them there.
Yes. They're the slave traders, I guess, of the galaxy at this point. It's like the hub where all the slaves pass through in order to be sent out to different systems to do the bidding, probably for the Empire at this point now. But I don't know what they're doing there in the Bad Batch.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard talk that they are flying to Zygeria, and maybe we've only seen the light whips, and it's being run by a Zygerian. So, I mean, it's very strong to assume that is Zygeria, but if it's not, then it's interesting to see where it is. But yeah, and like the role of slaves in the Empire is one of those things. Like you look at Fallen Order, like them trying to control Kashyyyk, and you have to free Wookiees and stuff like that in that game. I think that the role of slaves in the Empire is one of those things they might push more because that's something that is part of the Imperial machine.
Well, if we do see that arc with the Wookiees from the Bad Batch, maybe that episode was a part of the Kashyyyk arc. Maybe the Bad Batch was tasked with going to free Wookiees on Zygeria, and at this point, the Republic is still the good guys, quote unquote, and they're doing something for the betterment of a Republic system like Kashyyyk.
It would be interesting to think about. The first arc is Kashyyyk, and they're on Kashyyyk doing all that stuff, and then they leave Kashyyyk, and then Order 66 happens, and the Empire rises, and then they do another arc where they go back to free Wookiees, like in their mercenary life. I think that would be really interesting to see how, not only how much they've changed, but also they're going to do like humanitarian stuff and help out. I don't know if they're going to be gray characters though, like in the middle of the road, or
I think there might be some differing opinions amongst the group. Maybe Echo feels differently about something, whereas Wrecker has a all new perspective. And that's the interesting thing about these characters. I want to know them on a deeper level. Personally, for me, if I'm being completely honest, the Bad Batch arc, although it was well done, it's not my favorite arc of the Clone Wars. And it's only one arc, and we only see these characters one time. Whereas I feel like there are so many other characters that I could see having an arc in an anthology Clone Wars series before them. I'm excited to see it because it allows you to have such a different perspective in this period for when the Empire comes to power. I just don't know the way they're going to treat the characters, since they were like kind of the silly guys that got stuff done in their 4-part arc.
I always thought that was just a nice intro to them. I always wanted to see more. Now that we are seeing more, I think we will see them in a more serious sense. That was just like a fun way to get them in. The stakes weren't that high in that arc. Overall, I never really took it as serious. I was like, the Bad Batch is going to just win the day, and they got Echo back and all that stuff. So I think this is more of like a more high stakes and dramatic kind of thing.
Yeah,
because they know they have the audience for it. So,
I mean, if it's anything like the quality of animation that we saw in the last arc for season 7, it won't be that level of story because that's just such on a grander scale than everything else in the Clone Wars that we've seen since the series finale.
Yeah,
I'm just excited for the level of quality of animation. That's what I'm excited for. Even if the story sucks, we're getting at least beautiful Star Wars. We didn't know 100% that it would be like that either, that it would be the exact same animation for Clone Wars before. So
it was like a tongue-in-cheek kind of way of for them to say this is Clone Wars season 8 without saying, like, they couldn't really brand it Clone Wars because it's not the Clone Wars anymore. So I understand why they had to make it the Bad Batch. And maybe the Bad Batch doesn't just mean the Bad Batch themselves, the actual group. Maybe it means Bad Batch as in all clones are now a Bad Batch because they're not conscripted to be stormtroopers anymore. It's going to mean more than kind of like The Walking Dead itself doesn't mean the zombies. It means the actual living characters are The Walking Dead because they're already pretty much dead anyways. Yeah. So I think that might mean one of those things of like the Bad Batch doesn't just describe the Bad Batch themselves, but the clones as a whole.
I almost, from what you're saying, if we're going off of that, you can extrapolate that maybe the Bad Batch is going after other clones that didn't carry out Order 66, or like putting together a group of them in order to do good humanitarian missions like you were talking about before.
This show has been, like I said before, has been advertised as the show to talk about what happens to the clones. So who do you think we're going to see? Do you think we're going to see Captain Rex? Do you think we're going to see Commander Cody? Like, what kind of characters do you think we're going to see in this series?
Well, judging from other Disney Plus series, I have a feeling that this is going to be 3 different arcs. First arc, Kashyyyk. Second arc, what are they doing on Kamino? What are the other clones doing? They're at odds with each other, right? And then third arc is like what happens after they take off the armor and put their old life away in a way. So I feel like throughout we're going to see different ones. Maybe Cody, because a lot of people always have wondered what happened to Cody. Maybe Rex, we'll see him early on. I mentioned maybe talking to Echo on an Axis even. That could be where it potentially starts, and then they get a mission to go to Kashyyyk. Who knows? I think we're going to see different clone commanders from the looks of the trailer as well. Different antagonists.
Yeah. Yeah, and they didn't tell us how many episodes we're getting, though, right?
No.
So it could be a 22 episode long Clone Wars was, or it could be a 12 episode. I
just
really
don't picture them doing a 22 episode Disney Plus exclusive series. I think it's going to be what season 7 was for Clone Wars. What was that? 12 episodes? 12 episodes and call it a day. And maybe they won't even do a season 2. And that's what I was going to say. Depending on its success, if they did do another season, I would be like, yeah, we're going to meet up with like all of these different clones that, hey, remember Bakara?
Oh, in my mind, I think it's completely locked. This isn't going to be a one series show. Like, in my mind, I've always thought this was not. I think this is going to be an ongoing project.
And I'm fine with that.
Animated series. Until we pick up something like a High Republic animated series or something like that. Because right now, this is the only animated series that we have. Visions and stuff like that. That's like an anime show, but we don't have like a computer animated show right now. So I think this is it, like pushing the envelope forward.
If that doesn't happen, I would personally love to see if this was like a break off of Clone Wars as its own kind of anthology miniseries. This matters for like the clones and like the timeline of what's going on in the galaxy. Separate one. Bounty hunters. What happens to Cad Bane, Boba Fett, all those guys. And then something else that breaks off to answer some questions that we have from leftovers of the Clone Wars that we never got fully answered. I mean, the Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos arc was supposed to be like the majority of one of the seasons of Clone Wars.
Yeah, I think it was like 16 episodes or something like that.
So I almost picture like, so we have Bad Batch. That's its own series. And then instead of being all Clone Wars titled, since the Clone Wars
Can we find out what happens to maybe Colonel Maber Gaston and Wack show up?
And they team up with Mace Windu and we figure out what happened to him after.
A one-eyed, one-armed Mace Windu, yes.
He fell in a dumpster. I just always picture him falling in a dumpster whenever he falls out the window.
Oh, I always think of the Robot Chicken sketch with the janitor who's always cleaning up things that fall down. It's like sweeping the floor in the reactor core. Darth Maul's body falls down and just keeps sweeping it up. And then like Mace Windu's body and then Emperor Palpatine. Good quality humor.
What else we got for Bad Batch?
Fennec Shand, what do you think?
Crazy seeing that character in an animated form. I think Ming-Na Wen will likely voice her, which will be nice. I'm just excited to see characters be reintroduced in a new way, I suppose, especially from something as recent as Mandalorian. And we've gotten to know her a little bit better lately as well. I think she will start off as more of a antagonist in Bad Batch for them. Not necessarily someone who's going to help them, since she is more of the Imperial type.
I'm not really sure. I'm very excited to see her. It feels, I don't want to say like reverse engineered. I'm trying to think what another character is that's been kind of
That's a good way to put it, though. I like that.
Like, or even like Beckett into with Aura Singh, like stuff like that. These characters that are made and then they're made to have appeared in a different timeline. Or Dryden Voss. That's what I was gonna say. Dryden Voss in the Clone Wars when he shows up in the last season of Clone Wars.
0.2 seconds.
Yeah. In like the normal series, he would not have been there. But to have him there is something that's very interesting to think about.
Especially something in the Clone Wars style of animation that is a nostalgia kick for me. I grew up with that style, and it's a beautiful quality, but it's almost like a blast from the past for us. It's not something new, but it's so weird to have, like you said, a character show up post Clone Wars in this new Disney era, and then Clone Wars almost reminds me of like wholesale Lucasfilm Star Wars, and then meshing those two together.
Like, I think that's one of the reasons I probably like Saw Gerrera so much. I mean, like, I love Forrest Whitaker to begin with, but he was the first Clone Wars character to be brought into the new world of Disney, Lucasfilm, live action, and Rogue One. So to have that, I think is just one of those really cool things. Like, we had that journey, and now we have the journey back across. And so it'll be really interesting to see.
Something like Fennec Shand, seeing her in her early days, maybe, will give us a better perspective of what she's doing in Mandalorian, since I'm sure Dave Filoni knows like the backstory of the character before Mandalorian while he's making that series, right? So maybe this will add more flavor, if you will, to what we're watching in Mando right now with her character.
And this will be between seasons 2 and 3 of Mando, like in the break between. So it'll be nice to, like you said, to kind of revisit. As long as she survives next week's episode,
it will feel more like a remembrance of Fennec Shand when we see the Bad Batch version of her.
She gets shot in Bad Batch and they fix her up, and so she has like a robot arm or like a robot something, and then like it's to like explain why. Or maybe she like gets shot in Bad Batch and they give her a robot stomach. She never explains it in Mando, and that's why she's always had a robot stomach. Yeah, but she just never told anyone.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair.
That's showbiz, kid.
We go to Bakara. It's not Bakara. It's not Bakara, because Bakara is the clone trooper.
Yeah, but they don't care about that. That's the name of it in Fallen Order.
Bakara?
Pretty sure.
Okay. Well, that planet that starts with a B.
Back to the Future.
Bakara. We're gonna go to Bakara.
I don't know if that is. I've heard people talking about this online. It could be.
I think it's the same. Same as the one you play in the first level of Jedi Fallen Order. It's in the Cassian Andor series that you glimpsed in the trailer, the sizzle, whatever you want to call it. I think it's all the same.
I'm fine with it as long as we don't see Cal Kestis. I do not want to see Cal Kestis.
No, No. And I don't want to see him in Mandalorian either. It's like forcing something to fit. It's like having a puzzle and taking a piece that shouldn't fit another piece and like forcing it to go in when it doesn't fit.
At the end of Fallen Order, he's not a Jedi anymore. So
No.
I mean, I'd be fine with it in that sense of like after the events of Fallen Order, if we see him again in some sense, yes. But before that, when he's just a scrap worker, I don't really see the need to.
He's a nobody. He's a nobody at that point.
That's the point.
Maybe that's pretty far after Order 66, right?
But doesn't his escape pod leave directly from the destroyed Venator where he leaves his master? Then he goes straight to the
Sam, I didn't finish the game, so I can't tell you. But he's a kid when that all happens, I felt like. I feel like that game happens years after Order 66, whereas...
I'd say probably 5 years after Order 66.
Whereas this is like a day after.
Yeah, it depends on if he landed there or whatever, but...
we find out Revenge of the Sith was actually like a week in time.
The whole Star Wars trilogy was just a week in time. But anything else on Bad Batch? I think we gave it a pretty good dose of analyzation.
Let us know what you guys think. If you notice something that maybe we didn't talk about that's slipping our minds, I'm sure we're going to think of each 5 things that we could have talked about, and that can
like the Rathtar Dianoga thing.
Okay, let's talk about that then. I think that's more of a Rathtar situation.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I've heard it called both a Dianoga and a Rathtar, but I think it's a Rathtar
or Sarlacc.
Baby Sarlacc, like the Galaxy's Edge comic. Yes, please. Running around, chasing Han Solo.
It looks exciting, and I'm happy to get anything that is even tangentially close to Clone Wars in any way, even if it's just a little off. I loved Clone Wars as a show, and take me back to my childhood, Dave Filoni. I love you to pieces. Thank you so much.
Well, the next one down the line is the Andor series. How'd you feel about the sizzle roll, the behind the scenes reel that we got about Diego Luna just loving that he got to come back as Cassian Andor? What are your hopes and dreams for this show?
Hey, Diego Luna, I love it. I love it so much. I love being in Star Wars. That's what the whole sizzle was. We got the creature guy back. Woohoo! We got the creature guy. I don't like that creature guy, if I'm being honest.
Why?
I find him as a person. I don't know
Scanlon?
Him. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like his work. I'm sorry. I genuinely don't. Yeah, you've heard it here first, folks. Hot take. I am not a fan at all of the creatures that we get in new Star Wars. Why? Because they are so bland. They are all the same beige color with different variations. I want Greedo, neon green. I want blue Twi'leks. I want all of these other colored creatures, bright orange. If you look at the original Star Wars creatures, you look at Jabba's palace, you got size noodles, bright blue Max Rebo. Where did the color go? It's desaturated.
Hey, Dribby McCool was tan.
You had some variations in there, but I want aliens back. I want these exotic creatures and costumes. It just seems a little to me.
Well, folks, I'm on the complete other polar opposite. I freaking love the aliens and the new stuff. So,
what's your favorite alien?
What's that?
What's your favorite alien in the new sequel Star Wars films?
I really like the guys with the mustache things that they introduced in The Force Awakens. Well, I guess they didn't really introduce that because it's technically from Clone Wars, isn't it? Because a guy who is a bounty hunter that chases Padme in the episode with Robonino.
Those are
the same species.
No, those are completely different. Because he was green. He was bluish green. Mm-hmm. Darker, almost gray, but a dark bluish green.
Well, those guys are the Abonitos. That's what they're called. They're green.
The guy who was a pilot, the brown people.
They're not brown. They're yellow green. They're like slug color. I also really like Moroff. He's the character with the giant white abominable snowman guy. And two tubes.
He's fine, but he's basically just a Wampa. I mean,
he has the mask and you're really hard to please. I feel bad.
I just want exotic creatures. I think Moroff is in the vein of where I'm going, but he's more like a Wookiee, honestly. It's like we've already been there, done that to me.
Okay, what about Space Monkey in the U-Wing?
What's his name? Pow is the guy with the big...
Yeah, his Lego figures back there in amongst all the...
The U-Wing pilot is okay, but they're just... bleh, beige colors. I want to see vibrant creatures. I want to see variety.
But I understand why they're coming from with the palette of the shows. Like, it's really hard. Like, you want the main characters to stand out, and when you have all these colors going out, the eye just kind of just loses stuff. So it's tough. I
Jabba's
understand where.
palace, man. Even the prequels. Look at all the prequel aliens. They
I
feel
just think
so
about
much more exotic to me.
To me, I feel like the casino in Canto Bight feels more exotic to me than, like, you look at the bar in episode 2. To me, it's just like there's a lot of people in there, a lot of humans.
That's how I
Like,
feel
just
about Canto Bight. I feel the exact same way about Canto Bight.
really, that's funny because I see a whole bunch of aliens there.
I
that
only see the
don't
people.
know.
That's
Well,
really,
you never thought we'd be
really
talking about
funny.
this in this hype show.
No.
We have a lot of stuff to talk about, and we're talking about this. We're talking about how much you hate Neil.
I got a bone to pick with Neil Scanlon. Give me a call, Neil. We can sort things out. But
well, that's Matt's thought on Cassian Andor.
well,
I'm very excited for Cassian Andor.
That was half the sizzle. Was Neil?
No, half it was Diego Luna. A quarter of it was Neil Scanlon, and a quarter of it was the casting guy.
Okay.
And then there's a quick 2 seconds of them flashing through a bunch of concept art.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to get too much into theorizing stuff with that because much like The Force Awakens, I remember back in the day seeing art on a board in one of the early sizzles for that film, and they're just throwing all these ideas everywhere. I think that's why they allowed the art to be shown. It's nothing concrete. It's early iterations. Sometimes they just throw art up and do sketches of whatever just to get ideation happening for a story. Sometimes the story is born in the art, honestly. For this, I kind of feel the same way. I don't want to get bogged down into too much theorizing with that, but it's cool to see. It gets you excited.
I mean, Rogue One is probably my favorite Star Wars movie, if I'm totally honest. I'm excited to see the darker side of the rebellion, just the spy side of it. And that's what they've always promised us is that this show is going to be like the Bourne Ultimatum of Star Wars stuff. So to see Cassian sneaking around doing spy stuff for the rebellion, I think is just really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
With K2.
I'm more excited for it now than I was before, honestly. It got me hyped for it, which is good, but it's still pretty far away, it feels like.
Yeah, about a year.
Okay, for something like Bad Batch, or even Kenobi, when we get into that, having these characters that come back gets me excited. For Andor, seeing Mon Mothma, that would make me excited. Seeing all these other characters from the Rebellion would get me excited.
Television's Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa.
I don't think we're going to see all these other characters that we know and love. I think it's going to be a very select few groups. Well,
it's hard because you can't bring back in Chirrut and Baze or Jin or Bodhi, like all these characters. I would really hate it if they did something like where they went to an Imperial facility and Bodhi is like a shuttle pilot.
No, they're not
waste that.
They're not going to do that.
That's the kind of fan service is not good. But like, or if they like somehow need to go to Jeddah. But if they have like the guy who he shoots the beginning in the show, then I'm in for it because he's a contact that he had from the past and all that stuff. That's interesting to me.
Pablo Hidalgo.
Yeah, exactly. Pablo Hidalgo with his arm in a sling because someone beat him up for saying the wrong thing about Ilum being Starkiller based. I think it's funny. There's some people who think they saw Quinlan Voss concept art in the background for that, and I'm just like, well, how is Cassian gonna find Quinlan Voss?
Quinlan Voss is the rebel spy on Star Tours. I just picture sitting in Star Tours, and then the camera zooms in on an individual, and it's just Quinlan Voss sitting there.
It's just Sal Perales with eye paint on in his Quinlan Voss outfit. This is 12 episodes, which is also interesting. I mean, I think it's cool having a 12 episodes like versus the Mando's 8. If this is a limited series, then
I think it is
cool.
I think that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, I would love to have it be an ongoing series. I think 2 seasons for the show would be good. Like 2 12-episode seasons would be good, just because I think there's that much content there. At the same time, I'm very happy with 12 episodes flat. Like, perfectly good. It's something I never thought we'd get. I never thought we'd get a sequel to Rogue One.
I think make it 12 episodes, 1 season. Don't draw it out longer than it needs to be, because the problem is if you do more than 1 season, say you have 2 12-episode seasons, quote unquote, it segments the viewership. So what I mean by that is you get going with the story in the first season, and then the second season, just the way shows run, it feels like it's more of a build up to the third. I feel like it would just be 2 different story arcs for the character if you did 2 different seasons of the show. and it would be a build up to nowhere in a way.
Who knows? It's tough to say what their plan is right now because they haven't said yet. I mean, they clearly said when they announced Kenobi, this is a 8-episode run. That's it. I think the same thing with some of these other shows that they mentioned. I think Lando is a set show for like a limited event.
And when they want to do so many shows for different characters is what it seems like pretty much give everybody a spinoff. You can't have them be all ongoing series. I think Mando is the perfect ongoing series for them to continue on Disney Plus. It's a new character. It ties into other characters' stories. I think that's the perfect way to do it. I honestly think Bad Batch should only, for me at least, unless they do an incredible job and blow me away, and I'm sure they will, I think it should be just a limited series and then get to doing something else in animation from the Clone Wars era. Like, don't get rid of Clone Wars animation by any means. Please keep that. But having different series following different characters and having that variety would be good.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I mean, I'm happy with any content we get in this realm because seeing more of Cassian with Mon Mothma and Colonel Draven or Blue Leader and Admiral Raddus, whatever you want to throw me. Like, if you want to tell me about how the rebellion got Mon Cala in and Cassian helped them with it, give me all that whole storyline. I'm really, I'm interested in whatever they give us. So
yeah. I just want it to matter. I don't want it to be some off kilter mission that doesn't feed into the Star Wars saga at all. I really want it to matter, and I think that's what I struggle with a series like that.
They're giving these stories, these like supplemental stories to these spin-off movies that people had. Rogue One now has another thing standing with it. It's not just a sole standalone. It's now something else to tie it into the larger fabric. And I think Lando is that hope of let's bring back this cast of characters from Solo and give them another round. Okay, here's some more stories with these characters. We'll get there when we talk about Lando.
Yeah.
Kenobi. And I don't have a whole lot to talk about Kenobi, but I'm feeling you want to talk about Kenobi.
This is honestly, I'm most excited for Bad Batch first, and then Kenobi is second for me, honestly. I think they can do some incredible stuff in this series. Deborah Chow did an amazing job in the Mando episode that she directed. So I'm excited to have her back. And I really wasn't expecting it when they announced that Hayden Christensen would be back as Vader, but I'm really happy about it. I know you get off. I'm gonna get you out of here. I'm gonna kick you from the Zoom call.
I just figured it was a given. In my mind, it was like they're bringing Ewan back.
You know why it makes me excited? Because they hate him so much, it feels like at times. They had such an opportunity to bring back Hayden Christensen for the sequel trilogy as a Force Ghost. They never did it. They never gave him the time of day, it felt like. And it felt like he, as a character in Star Wars, has had so much pushback on from the prequels. You know how the prequels have haters, the sequels have haters? The way some of the prequel haters treated Hayden Christensen was just out of this world. And I think he deserves some more love and time to shine in the sun or under a mask. But the way I see the Kenobi series unfolding is primarily through flashbacks, honestly. I think that would be the best way to do it. And maybe even having Vader and Obi-Wan connect through the Force and almost have like discussions between the two of them from time to time, much like Vader and Luke can sense each other. Maybe Obi-Wan and Vader can almost communicate through the Force across the galaxy.
Interesting.
See, that's what gets me excited. Or just having parts in that series where Obi-Wan goes to his past and remembers Satine. He's sitting in the desert alone, thinking about his past, thinking about all the terrible things that he was put through, or the guilt that he felt losing his apprentice to the dark side. He blames himself. Losing Satine from Maul, he blames himself from that. His master dying at the hands of Maul, he blames himself. Having flashbacks to these different periods of his life in the past, before the Clone Wars, during the Clone Wars, with Anakin, with Satine, all these characters in a live action format, bring Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon. Bring all that back.
But the thing I missed the first time I watched that announcement was Kathleen Kennedy saying that it's going to lead to the showdown. I don't know what kind of showdown that means, if that means like a physical showdown. What is the climax of the series? And you and I think, we're on the same page of this, where Obi-Wan never leaves Tatooine in my mind. I mean, if they find the right story, maybe, but I still don't think that he should leave Tatooine.
I agree with that, but what I did see, someone said this, I don't know how true it is or if this was a legitimate article or not. Someone said that they would have Jedi hunters going after him and he would be forced to fighting them with kind of Vader behind that order. I'm not necessarily all about that because I don't think Obi-Wan leaves Tatooine and puts Luke at risk in any way. That's his job. He is camped out there. We see him in Rebels and how dedicated he is to that cause. I'm hard pressed to think that too many people are going to get him off the planet, but maybe they just come to him and he new villain of the week. Boba Fett comes down to Obi-Wan and they fight and Obi-Wan wins and Boba Fett flees. Dengar comes down.
I think it's interesting that people think that, like, side note real quick, that Obi-Wan's hut still exists. Like, in the Vader comic, Boba Fett blows that thing up. First, like, volume of the Darth Vader comic. People were like, oh yeah, in the sequel trilogy, we can go back to Obi-Wan's hut. It's still there. I was like, you're not there anymore.
Did you read the comic? I like that line where Luke and Boba Fett showdown. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Do you think Maul and Ezra are going to show up in this series? There's people who think that the whole showdown with Maul is going to be the part of this.
What if that's who Kathleen Kennedy was referencing and it's not Anakin?
I mean, casting a live action Ezra just for that, I don't know.
I don't see it happening. It's already been done. There's no need to redo it. I think Deborah Chow and Dave Filoni seem to be tight friends. I think he would be like, Deborah, you could do so many other things. Don't mess with this stuff.
How did you feel about not being able to see the reel of stuff last night? What do you think was in it?
I don't know. I think it was test footage. It was just to give investors an idea of what the feel of the show would be like, much like Cassian, but a bit less put together. It's just like, here's a test footage of Ewan McGregor in a desert walking around. I don't think it's anything too substantial or specific.
Yeah.
I was disappointed. I want in on the secret. I want to know. But
yeah, I do that every time they do that at panels and stuff like that. I want to see that, but at the same time, I don't pay them billions of dollars to be part of this company. So we want to talk about Lando.
Is that the next in the timeline for when they're releasing them, or do we not know?
I think most of the rest of these are kind of just out there. They didn't really give a date very well. Do you think Donald Glover is going to come back? Do you think this is going to be a solo sequel? Do you think it should have been called the Calrissian Chronicles? What?
I think it's going to be Donald Glover. I think that would be a missed opportunity if they didn't do it that way, unless they're going to animate it, which I don't think we need.
It's going to be just Billy D hanging out and doing gambling.
It's going to be, here it is. It's going to be Billy D retelling stories, and then in the flashback, we're going to have Donald Glover as young Lando. That's my pitch for you with L3.
That's pretty much where I was coming from with it too. I think it would be also kind of like the book Last Shot that was a spinoff or it was a lead up book for Solo. They go through different eras and stuff like that. I think it could be like an anthology series that isn't exactly in a linear fashion. Lando talks about, oh, well, we did this mission this one time and they can bring back characters. Like it can have L3 in it, but they can also have Han and they can have Boba, like all these characters that he runs into, and Aura Singh, because they talk about how he had a rivalry with Aura Singh.
Just have him go on different adventures. I think it would be fun. We enjoy the personality of Lando and the swagger that character has. So I think as long as they keep in that same vein and don't veer too far away from it, I think we'll be good. A lot of these are, so different as these Disney Plus series were announced. I just don't want them to be too carried away. And I feel like if they stay a bit more grounded, don't go all over the place with us.
I heard people wanting to have this be like old Lando and Jannah together, him telling her stories, but at the same time, they're like working towards finding her people or something like that.
And I'm fine with that. I mean, that answers a big question that kind of left a weird cliffhanger.
A very awkward cliffhanger
at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I'd
like to see
find out who your daddy is. I think it'll be good as long as they treat the character with some reverence and don't go too far out.
And that's just about everything I have to say about that show. I mean, I want to see the cast of Solo back. But I think we're going to get a Solo sequel at some point once the dust settles on it. I think we will get the story of Kira and Maul and what happens with Han and all that stuff.
Going after
But
Jabba.
I think it's going to take some time. Yeah, exactly. And like his first job with Jabba, not Jawas, with Jabba. And
Houdini! It's hard to talk about a series like that when you haven't had any footage or anything released.
I mean, they showed stuff yesterday, but
we didn't see it.
Didn't get to see it. If you're an investor for Disney and you're listening to the show, please just give us a detailed description of all of them.
Here's the test footage.
Break the NDA.
Here's what I'm going to tell you the test footage was. It was Billy D and Jana sitting there in like a really crappily put together, like before any effects were added to it, Millennium Falcon cockpit.
It's the cardboard cutout thing they had in the theaters with like the seats and like.
He's like, how would you like to find your family? That's just like literally it. Lando, a Star Wars story.
Have you ever met a card player before?
Who's your daddy, Jenna?
Oh, well, let's just get off this topic before it gets a lot worse. The newest show that I'm the most hype about is Acolyte. I think this is a show. Same thing.
Say it with me. Acolyte.
Acolyte.
It's not alchemy. Acolyte.
It's set 200 years before, at the end of the High Republic era. In my mind, I'm actually reading the Darth Plagueis book right now for the first time. So I am deeply steeped in the Sith knowledge of Legends right now. I feel like it's such a good book. If you have not read it yet, it's not currently canon, but if you haven't read it, it's a journey. It's a real journey about Darth Plagueis and his master, Darth Tenebris. Well, I've always had a hard time hearing it or reading it. But
you're actually reading it. You're not even listening to the audiobook?
Oh no, I'm listening to the audiobook. I had heard it so many times, but I could not remember how it was actually spelled, so I had to write it on my notes. It's like a book about how the Sith are trying to change their image from these like warriors of like old that had these huge armies into political masterminds. Plagueis was the first one who, when he killed his master, he realized he had to become a political mastermind. Like his master thought you could just like create chaos and it would like help the Sith win. He realizes like you had to use politics and money to try to convince the masses that they needed chaos.
Yeah.
And so that's what that whole thing's about. And I think that'd be really cool if they're talking about Darth Tenebris or any of like that line that leads to Plagueis. I think
so.
That
Tenebris
really
was
awesome.
Plagueis' master.
Yes, he's a Bith, which is also really funny. He's a Bith with messed up lungs, so he's like a breathing apparatus.
So I'm looking at it right now, and this is how I like to break things down from a more analytical, rational perspective. Acolyte, dictionary.com. A person assisting the celebrant in a religious service or procession, an assistant or a follower. So if you're thinking about the dark side in this way during the High Republic, I feel like they're amidst the shadows. They haven't really came out yet. This is before the Old Republic, right?
No, this is after the Old Republic, before the Phantom Menace.
So the Old Republic is first, then the High Republic, then the Phantom Menace and everything else.
Yeah.
So do you think the Acolyte in that case would be Plagueis serving his master? Or would this be... Because the High Republic is still pretty far away from Episode 1. It's still hundreds of years with Palpatine. So is it Plagueis with Tenebris, or is it Palpatine with Plagueis?
I don't think it's Palpatine with Plagueis, unless it's a long-running series. But also, it's interesting to me that the director of the show is people thought she was directing the Ahsoka show because she focuses so much on female stories. So that's also something that's tough for me to figure out if she's doing a female-led story, because the rumors before this said she was directing a female-led Star Wars story going in a new direction.
I'll tell you if they change... if they change Legends too much in that story and they make Plagueis' master a female, people are going to... You will see the biggest upset that you've ever seen in the Star Wars community, bigger than The Last Jedi. I'm calling it now. If they do something like that, it's going to be bad.
I'm not in like any kind of super camp. I'm not going to die on a hill for it. But
I think that they shouldn't be too beholden to the material, but I know that a lot of people are.
Well, and that's, to me, George Lucas said that book was the closest thing to canon. You know, if during the merger, it was one of those things that came out right on the cusp of the merger. And and he had said that was pretty much canon. So that's why I was reading, because I was like, well, if George Lucas said this was pretty much canon, then I'm gonna read it because I want to know what this prequel Palpatine is like.
Yeah.
And so, and it's giving me a lot of insight into
that in a way puts me on the hill to die for it then. Because I'm always about source material. If I could have George Lucas back as a director in Star Wars, I would.
Well, how about in the sequel trilogy, the Acolytes of the Beyond?
Acolytes.
So, yeah, it just rolls off the tongue better that way. Like the ones who are on Exegol, and they're the ones in the Aftermath trilogy that are building up this as resistance against, or this like Sith resurgence or whatever you want to call it. Is this like an early version of them, like these people who are on the Sith planet? Like, is this like the Exegol story that we've been told that we might be getting? Maybe, which would leave the door open for Tenebris and Plagueis and all this stuff, and
to come into it. Yeah. I think personally, it would be such a missed opportunity to not have a Plagueis-led story. I don't think you need to set it up as we're following this other new character and experiencing everything through their eyes as the story unfolds. But honestly, a Plagueis story might be too dark without that. So that's something to consider as well.
Well, I mean, Disney announced that they're going to have more mature content on Disney Plus now. So
I don't think this is going to be R-rated.
I mean, from what I've read so far, there's some pretty dark stuff going on in this book. So if people want to see it for what it is, I mean, Sith aren't nice. So
no, and I don't think they should be. But at the same time, I think that Star Wars is for everyone. Just as I have said before, if you make it too childish and kid-friendly, then we can't enjoy it as much as adults. And if you make something too adult and non-kid-friendly, then kids can enjoy it. I think Star Wars can be made for everyone as a whole. I don't think you need to even make different series that are geared towards specific audiences.
Yeah, like Resistance versus, I think the most violent thing of Star Wars we've had was last week's episode of Mando with Boba Fett kicking butt and people.
I feel like we've had more violent scenarios than that, but I'm trying to think.
The other one was the guys getting burned alive by a flamethrower. I think about that too in chapter 3, like the guy who gets a face full of flamethrower from Din Djarin.
Yeah, but I would agree that The Mandalorian has been probably the darkest Star Wars that we've seen, or at least the grittiest.
Yeah, I mean, nice thing about Clone Wars is that they had those extended episodes, so like the regular TV cut didn't have that stuff when we were kids, but you watch on the DVD or you watch on Disney Plus now, you have like Savage throwing the lightsaber at the Black Sun people, and then you see all their headless bodies like fall over. We didn't see that as kids, so.
I mean, I watched the deleted scenes, but.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did too. When you saw it the first time on TV, like that wasn't like what you. No. Now I'm used to it as being part of the episode because it's the only way you can see it on Disney Plus.
Exactly. I just think it's great to have the High Republic kind of tie in, hopefully, to something like this. And I told you this last night, and it's what I want to believe. I think there will be threads that tie into from all of the High Republic content, what the Sith are up to at this point, because that's truly what we're wondering, right? As much as we love space Vikings, I think the Sith are our ultimate enemy that we're wondering, what are they up to at this point? So hopefully we get a little nugget from each of those pieces of content that can be extrapolated upon later in this series, so it all kind of matters.
But at the same time, the Jedi have to still be believing that the Sith are dead. That's the tough hole that they're in that era, is they're between the Old Republic and in episode 1, they're like, oh yeah, the Sith are dead. We're fine. You didn't get attacked by a Sith warrior.
And that's fair. Yeah, you need to have conflict. So where does that conflict come from? From within the Sith?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, other than Jedi going missing, but you can't have that happen too much because then they're like, well, there's something out there. I'm very excited. Matt and I have talked about how we're going to handle the High Republic content deluge that's coming out in a few weeks. I'm going to try to storm through a whole bunch of books, and he's going to try to do the comics, and we'll see how it turns out. It's going to be a lot of stuff.
It's going to be hard to explain to each other.
You're holding the comic and you're like, so this is what happens in this panel. Okay, this is what happens in this panel.
I think it's just going to be a lot of strange stuff. I mean, the comics are strange no matter what happens in any of the comics. So
General Grievous, Mon Cala, all the time. That's the strangest thing I think I've seen in Star Wars comics so far.
Or Han, Leia, Luke, and Chewbacca with lightsabers fighting a giant monster. Yeah.
They definitely find the right kind of death sticks for that.
interesting stories, but I don't hate them. I think they're very fun.
So how do you feel about Power Rangers of the New Republic? Go, go, Power Rangers of the New Republic.
I think it's going to be a good series. It's helmed by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. It felt like they're tied together to it. That and Ahsoka. I'm excited to see new content during the era of the Resistance and the New Republic. Really, I'm game for it. There's not a whole lot to extrapolate on because we don't really know the story, but I think it'll be fun.
What characters do you think it'll be about? Because it's supposed to tie into Ahsoka, which then ties into Mando. It's going to have a huge climactic event that combines all three shows together.
Did they say that?
Yeah. So Ahsoka is a limited series, that's for sure. And I think that's only 8 episodes and maybe 12. I just know it's a limited show. I don't know if Rangers is a limited show or ongoing show, but it sounds like it's going to all come together. In my mind, what I thought of when I heard that was Captain Carson and Trapper Wolf were going to come back as the X-Wing pilots. And it was just going to be them hanging out, going around the galaxy, trying to find out what's going on in the world.
So like how we discuss in our Mando podcast episodes, you have the law that's kind of chasing the cowboy around. Maybe it's them tracking him down throughout the same timeline and kind of communicating with the New Republic about what's going on.
In my mind, they are not only doing that, but that scene when he talks to Cara Dune, he's like, I know there's something going on out here. Like in my mind, that was like, oh, well, they've been on all these patrols. They've seen stuff. Like they kind of have an idea what's going on. They've been through some stuff. So to kind of see their journey together. But I don't think Dave Filoni would be like the lead of the show.
It's a buddy cop show with that guy and Dave Filoni. And they're just eating donuts the whole time and going on these different missions.
Yeah.
Pulling people over. Oh, we got a Trandoshan today. What's your call sign?
It's Bosk's sister and her Wookiee friends.
No. We've came up with too many inside jokes on the show already.
The thing is, that's the canon joke.
Scary. Very scary. I'm not expecting too much from it, but I think it'll be a good series. Now, on the other hand, from something like Ahsoka, there's a certain level of expectation with that title. Right.
Yeah. Well, where do you think it's going? I mean, you look at the title card, and I've heard people say, well, it's going to go to the world between worlds, just the way the title card looks.
Sounds like we're going to find out more about the Convery, about Morai. What if it's just all about Morai? Like you see the whole show through Morai's eyes. It's one shot, just like a bird swooping down, flying away.
Gallery, the Ahsoka. He shot this entire thing on a drone.
I think it'll be very interesting. She's obviously looking for information on where Thrawn and Ezra could be. I truly think that's what it's going to tackle in the timeline.
So you think this is going to be her and Sabine on their adventure in a limited series?
I don't. I think this is going to be Ahsoka on her own, much like we see her in Mando before the epilogue to Rebels. And that's going to tick a lot of people off. But then I think we're later going to get an animated series with those two characters, with them going to find their friend.
And I'm fine with that. I feel like they drug this out for so long.
They're going to milk it until the cows come home.
That's what's so frustrating is the end of Rebels happened how long ago? They haven't answered it. They haven't even talked about it. And then now they're talking about it, but it's going to be another. And I understand that makes money. As a fan, someone who wants to know the whole story.
They want to hype you up.
But it's interesting that Thrawn is still alive in the era that he was originally made for, in that era between Return of the Jedi and the sequel trilogy.
Which is what makes me think that he's going to matter to Mando. Although we talked about that, and it's something that we don't really want as of now. But honestly, that could be the crossover event.
I'm scared to death every time in the epilogues of the Mando episodes when they show Moff Gideon going near that communications table, because I'm like, God, no, don't make it Thrawn. Don't make like this last week when he walks up to the thing and it's Mando's.
Yes.
I was gripping the couch. I was like, please don't let it be freaking Thrawn. Don't let it be Thrawn. I was Mando. I was like, oh, good. Okay, we're good.
Look, there's a reason that they put it in this series. Okay. I'm sold now on that idea. I truly think, hey, maybe it's not in an animated series. Maybe we do get Sabine in this all in Mando, and we do get some Ezra and Thrawn action, and Thrawn is communicating with Moff Gideon, and ultimately, I just figured it out. What if Ahsoka needs to get to Moff Gideon 2 in order to find out what the information on where Thrawn is, and ultimately her and Mando are both after Moff Gideon, and they help each other because they never knew it before. That they were both after the same antagonist.
And so were the Power Rangers of the New Republic.
Yes. Something is building in the Outer Rim. Thrawn is still around. The Empire still feels that they have power because of this mastermind in the Empire.
Doesn't sound bad to me. I mean, as long as the story's right, I'm just going to keep supporting it.
With Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau at the helm, anything's possible in my book. And I'm always excited for those two, what they got cooking up. Literally, because Jon Favreau does cooking.
Speaking of partnerships, ILM and Lucasfilm Animation are teaming together to make droids with C-3PO and R2-D2. What do you think this is about, Matt?
Do we have any idea of what era this could be around?
It just said it's just stories about R2-D2 and C-3PO. But ILM, like, they talk about pushing the envelope with this, so I don't know what this is about.
How can you push the envelope with C-3PO and R2-D2?
I don't know. I mean, they missed their chance of like badass C-3PO with the fighting abilities in episode 9.
What if this is an X-Lab thing where it's virtual reality film? You know, like you put the headset on and you experience the whole film that way. Because that's what ILM has been working on recently, I feel like.
That sounds terrifying.
Why?
I don't want the entertainment world to go into 4D. I just don't.
It's the only place for it now that your theater isn't going to open back up. Hate to say it.
It's going to open back up.
In all of these announcements, they're all going straight to Disney Plus. It felt like none of these films were going to end up in a theater.
Well, no, because Rogue Squadron, it says it'll be in theaters holiday 2023.
Did they?
So, yeah.
On what kind of screen? A small screen or a big screen?
It just said theaters.
Home theater?
A lot can change in 2 years.
Well, it changed in 1 year. How do you feel about droids? What do you think it is?
I have no idea. I always think about the old days with the Droid animated series. That's what I keep thinking of. And like the next one that we're going to talk about is the Visions show as well, the anime show. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's going to be like the Clone Wars series with
Genndy, the Genndy series.
Yeah. That's what I'm just picturing. Just two outrageous anime things in Star Wars.
And you know, I'm kind of fine with that. I really enjoyed the Genndy series as a whole.
Yeah.
I think they could have one-off stories on characters we don't really need a full series on Disney Plus dedicated to. It's not really too exciting to have, let's say, a Bosk show. But
or an Oppo Rancisis show, how he survived Order 66 and how he found Grogu.
I will cry.
I believe the term was you'll paint your hair white and your skin green.
I will. It's not going to happen.
If he shows up anywhere. But I do think that like 10 individual stories, I think is something that's really cool overall.
Yeah. And I don't know. There's just so much that it could hold that it's almost like not even worth talking about because there's been nothing that's specified with it. Much like the Droid story.
We can speculate on it all day long, and we're not going to know anything for, I think, a while.
A year or two.
I'd say at least until... Honestly, well, I think that they might give teases of stuff in like July when they would do Comic-Con, or that summer stuff they might do updates on. Oh, here we are with this project and this project. Maybe. I don't know. But we'll probably also have a better idea of stuff when Celebration comes around next year, not 2021, 2022.
I kind of was wishing, and I know this is mainly film and TV show content, I kind of wish they would have included video games that they were working on or stuff like that. Although that's not as much for an investors meeting. What they're going for, I suppose.
Yeah, because Fallen Order 2 is in the works right now, but it's not clear yet if that is a direct storyline connection to Cal Kestis or if that is a story about some other Jedi in a different era. It's hard to tell.
Is that all for Star Wars, or is there
one more thing for Star Wars? There's not one more show. There's one more movie. That is the Rogue Squadron.
Oh
movie.
Yes. I thought that weird sizzle trailer, whatever teaser thing was. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was a commercial at first. I scrolled right past it. No clue. That was weird.
I understand why they wanted to make the connection between the fighter pilots, but why was she rollerblading?
She's like the whole time, hi, my name is, as she's taking her like shirt off and putting on the X-Wing jacket, the flight suit. She's changing as she's like talking to the camera, and it just feels so awkward because she's like shuffling around with her clothing. Watch it again. It's very strange.
I'm good. I watched it once.
Oh, that really got me excited for that movie.
I think the name carries enough weight that they didn't really have to do as much.
So are we thinking Wedge Antilles?
Yeah, I think Wedge. It's interesting because in A Certain Point of View Strikes Back, they had the whole chapter on Rogue Squadron itself and Wedge and Jansen trying to rebuild Rogue Squadron after everyone got killed during the Battle of Hoth. And so like trying to live up to the name of Rogue Squadron. And they're like, should we rename it Red Squadron again? I feel like it'll be post episode 6.
I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Rogue Squadron showed up at the Battle of Jakku, if I remember correctly.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were there and they were doing, because Wedge got them back together. Maybe it was Kashyyyk they showed up. But in the end of
it's in Aftermath.
Yeah, I know it's an Aftermath, and I know they show up at a surprise moment. Might be at the end of Life Dead. They're all captured, and then the run-in happens, and
because I know they couldn't get anybody to go to Jakku, and all of a sudden they show up, much like in Rogue One, how that ended up. I think that is a great story that deserves to be on the screen since Jakku matters so much to the canon.
It's tough to read it. Like, it's tough to read what happens in the Battle of Jakku.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, or even watch the cutscenes from Battlefront 2. Like you said, I don't feel like it does it justice, and like the deep significance that it's supposed to mean as the battle that ends the official. So maybe this whole thing is around the story of the Battle of Jakku, which would be great. I mean, I'd be fine if it was the story about the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah, and I don't want to see the formation of them before episode 4. That's not what I want. Which is what I'm worried.
Before episode 4.
They didn't?
No, they were created for episode 5 because Luke and Wedge were the only ones left of Red Squadron after Yavin.
Okay.
And then they want to do something, and Luke became the leader because everyone else died. He decided to choose the name after Rogue One. And so the highest designation in Rogue Squadron was Rogue 2, which is Zev Seneska.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dies in Hoth. So yeah, I think then they go back to Red Squadron. I don't know. There's all the books and stuff of Rogue Squadron. So we're going to have 2 years to read all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I was surprised that they released that information, which is coming out in 2023.
Yeah, and Taika's movies are coming out in 2025, beginning of 2025.
Movies with an S?
Yeah, it's a trilogy.
So they gave Taika the trilogy. What happened to Rian Johnson?
He's out there somewhere. It's like Thanos. You couldn't face your own defeats. Where did it bring you? Back to me.
I just picture them having this investors meeting and Rian Johnson is watching this from somewhere like far off in space. And then they are talking about like Taika having his own trilogy. And then you just see it cut to Rian Johnson and he reaches in, grabs the gauntlet. Fine, I'll do it myself. I don't know. That was curious. That was weird. When they announced that with the Game of Thrones guys and then they had that falling out, I'm surprised that they haven't given us an update as fans or for the investors even. If I was sending money for them, a ton of capital their way, I would want to know what's up with that Rian Johnson story because that matters for what the fandom thinks about Star Wars as a whole.
Someday soon we'll hear about it. Or if it got canceled, I don't know. But just real quick, ranking your anticipation, what are your top 3 that you're looking forward to?
Bad Batch, because it's soon.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan, Acolyte, those 3. I think those are going to be very interesting. And I hope to God, like I said, that Acolyte ties into High Republic era in a good way. And what content we're getting now or coming up soon. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me,
I forgot.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's wrong. I give up. No, go back. That's completely wrong, actually. Acolyte's number 4. There's so much content coming. It's so easy to forget.
Yeah.
Bad Batch, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Acolyte.
Interesting. For me, Andor is number 1. Bad Batch is number 2. And I think Acolyte has to be number 3. It's just something that's really interesting. And I think...
You're not excited for Ahsoka?
Not really.
This whole chat's going to hate you when this premieres.
I love Ahsoka. I mean, Ahsoka is my Luke Skywalker. That's the long and the short of it. Ahsoka is a character that I cheered when she showed up in Rebels. I enjoyed her in Mandalorian. I love the novel. And honestly, like number 4 would be Rangers of the New Republic, and Ahsoka would probably be 5. I really am looking forward to Andor. I think, like I said, Rogue One's my favorite movie. Bad Batch is going to be awesome. And then Acolyte is going to be just a really different kind of solid story, mystery, horror kind of stuff. So
I have a hunch. I have a strong hunch. One of these is going to get canceled that we've discussed today. I have a strong hunch. Or there's going to be a director change.
That always happens.
Something's going to happen here.
Kathleen Kennedy also mentioned that they're in the middle of making the final Indiana Jones that'll come out next year.
And Willow series.
Oh, Willow is so good. Have you seen Willow yet? You and everyone in this chat and watching this video needs to just spend the 2 hours to watch Willow on Disney Plus. It was something that when I first got Disney Plus, I watched for the first time, and so good. Such a good story. Except for one part that still horrifies me, and I'm a 23-year-old man that is afraid of a scene of magic. It's scary.
Well, didn't you watch it as a kid?
No.
No.
I watched it as an adult. No.
A magic sequence scared you as a old man?
But I watched it on YouTube a second time, like months later, and it's not as scary now. But watching it the first time, I was kind of terrified.
Okay.
It's like a very scary transformation sequence anyway. But Indiana Jones and Willow, yeah, I'm very excited about both these projects.
With Harrison Ford, not Chris Pratt, coming back in the role.
And that it's the final Indiana Jones, which Rise of Skywalker is the final Star Wars trip. Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker is not the last Star Wars film to premiere.
Yeah.
I think that this could be the last film with Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones. And I think that's the direction they might take. And then set it up in another way for someone else to take on the role. But do you think that Shia will come back?
Wearing a paper bag over his head.
His strange son.
No, maybe they'll do like the thing like what they do with Brody and his dad in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where they're like, oh man, it's too bad that Mutt ran away. And it's just like a black and white photo of him on the desk. And he's like, I gotta go find him someday, you know?
Yeah.
Or they recast him. They recast him with like Tom Holland. Okay, like an actor who looks nothing like him, but is popular by Disney. Or it's Josh Gad.
No, I would give up. I would literally give up.
Hi, I'm Mutt Williams, and I love warm hugs. Let's go crack that whip.
No.
Josh Gad narrates the Animal Kingdom show on Disney Plus. Oh, God. The show itself is decent, but it makes it that much worse that it's him narrating it.
There are a few people that I really dislike in pop culture media. He is, I think, the top.
Just because he's so fake. Like, it just feels like he's so fake and he's so Disney-ified. Yeah.
He's not himself, and you can tell very easily for someone who can barely like read people. Yeah. One thing that I wanted to do with you that I think would be extremely fun. Sam, if you were Kathleen Kennedy. By the way, she sounded so unamused in her presentation. I just wanted to point that out. She's very monotone. Anyways, you're Kathleen Kennedy. Okay. You can approve any Star Wars series, movie, whatever. What would you do? One thing. You got one wish to have as a Star Wars series, movie, whatever. What would you do? You can pick the director. You can pick the star. What would you do? I know I'm throwing this at you, but
I think that for me, a Saw Gerrera story would be really interesting. I think a Saw Gerrera story between the Clone War, like beginning in the Clone Wars. So I'm really into The Crown right now. It's a show that I think is really awesome. Don't worry, this will all come together. The Crown is a really good like story.
Sam, we go off on these other.
No, it spans many generations, but each episode is like a very good character story going along the way. And they change actors. Seasons 1 and 2 is one actor and like one cast, and then seasons 3 and 4 is a completely different cast. And then now seasons 5 and 6 are going to be another completely different cast. So I think having an actor that starts out as like young Saw Gerrera on Onderon, and then like he grows up and like showing him change through the time and like how he gets more beat up, and then like you change to Forrest Whitaker at a certain point. Like I think that would be so cool to see that progression from that idealistic leader that we saw in Onderon in the Clone Wars to the point that he gets at in Rogue One or in Rebels. I think that'd be really neat to see that kind of arc. And I think he's a character that really has a lot of arc because he lost everything and he continued to lose his stuff. And then like to have him rescue young Jin or so and like that relationship, I think that would be just such an amazing arc. And to see that on TV would be awesome.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I don't think it's going to happen. I hate to burst your
bubble. Oh, no, I don't either. But it's like if I can
be fun.
Bring something up.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. And I like how you mentioned like the 3 seasons of it with different. That's cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that way you're not trying to like de-age Forrest Whitaker, or you're not trying to age someone else up. You just respect that you changed the cast because everyone got older. Like
And
they have like young Jenner, so they had changed that actress in the third season to be someone like Felicity Jones.
we also have Saw Gerrera looking so different in Clone Wars than he does in live action anyway, so that would actually work for a character like that too. For me, you're not expecting this. I
Coleman
would
Trebor backstory.
No. It's better than that. It's better than that. It's a little random, but it's better than that.
Jango Fett backstory. Okay, good.
No, but that would be cool. I would actually get behind that. Okay.
Yeah.
Picture this. George Lucas returns to direct a final Star Wars project. This is his dream moment, to be able to bring the Star Wars fandom back together in a great way with Jar Binks. He loves Jar Jar. He is his favorite Star Wars character. And I think that if we had Ahmed Best back in the role of Jar Jar, we could see his adventures in the Senate, his rise to power there, and then to lose it all, including his friends through episode 3 and on. And aftermath, he becomes a juggler and a clown that kids pick on. I feel like we haven't ever gotten the tragedy of Jar Jar as a story, and I think it's about time that we finally can see it. And I'm sitting here right now petitioning for it. I think I'm starting this new movement where we all get on board with this idea.
And see, in my mind, I thought you were going to say like you wanted a live action Obi-Wan and Satine with Qui-Gon, like directed by George Lucas. And I was like, oh yeah, I can totally get behind that. That's why I thought you were going like, before episode 1, like that young Obi-Wan and all that stuff. I was like, yeah, it's going to sound great. And then you said that, and I was like, I mean, I do love the Senate.
He does truly have a tragic story. He loses everything.
Yeah. Oh, I was spraying invasive weeds and listening to the story of the tragedy, the aftermath interlude. I was like, this is so sad. Like, it is so heartbreaking because like who it is, but the kid in the book doesn't. Yeah. Oh, I totally
I think we
totally
need
feel
it.
that.
I think we need it. We never got to see a story about him that fully goes in depth and allows us as viewers to fully get in his mind and understand him. After being the laughingstock of the prequels for so long, I think we need to pay some respect to George for it too. I'm not even BSing you right now. I'm being honest. I would love to see George Lucas direct a story about Jar Jar for Disney. And I think he would love it too, because that's why he quit making Star Wars. That's part of the reason why he didn't want to make any other Star Wars after the prequels, because people hated his ideas. He loved Jar Jar as a character, truly, but people didn't want to give it a chance. After episode 1, he knew that the movies wouldn't sell if he kept him in a lead role.
Interesting stuff. We'll have to see what the people of the internet say.
I'm vying for this. I'm really hoping.
Well, how do you feel about the upcoming slate of Marvel stuff? We got WandaVision coming out in January, and we got a real trailer that actually showed stuff this time, not just a jumbled mess like last time.
And basically everything that I've ever seen about WandaVision, just you have no idea what's going on at all. But
yeah,
finally,
little teases that it's not real. Yeah,
it felt a little more grounded. They had that shot of the Soul Stone, which makes me think it's somehow involved in this. The meaning behind Vision being killed might matter to what this series is about. I'm not sure, but here's what I'm thinking too. Wanda and Vision both disappear when the snap happens. Well, Vision gets killed and Wanda gets dusted away. What if this series takes place like kind of in between that all?
Like between when she gets dusted and when the Soul Stone is destroyed by Thanos in the garden?
No. Well, maybe.
He uses the stones to destroy the stones?
Yes. Maybe.
So,
but like, this is the way I've always pictured it. I don't know why. It's like they're almost snapped into another reality. They weren't completely destroyed, but they went somewhere else. Maybe like an afterlife sort of deal. And they end up in an alternate dimension where they communicate, but they don't understand fully what happened. Like they have no past memory at all. They just know that there's more to life than what they're currently in. And then at the end, when they come back, when Hulk snaps them back, that's when the show ends.
Yeah, but Vision doesn't come back.
I know. That's why I'm trying to say, or maybe there's two of, I don't.
And that's what I was trying to think of in the back of my mind. I was like, how is a way that in a different timeline they could get the Soul Stone, try to figure out a way that from a different timeline they could take the stone and make a new timeline where Vision survives. But I don't think that, at least for the timeline they're in right now.
I think that there's somewhere else and that Thanos doesn't actually kill the people.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, I could totally see that. I've only watched the trailer once. I'd have to see it again. But in my mind, I feel like it's more like the Truman Show, where they are stuck in some kind of government thing where they're trying to harvest the Soul Stone from Vision. Vision and Wanda are stuck in this like alternate reality where they're trying to break them down and like get the Soul Stone from him. It seems like that, where it feels like a TV show so much. That's just like the vibe I got, was like seeing all the military helicopters and like the big lights and stuff in that one shot of the trailer. Still, we don't know anything, and it feels like Mando, where we knew pretty much nothing going into it.
I think yours is probably more accurate than mine, but I just don't understand how Vision is in it and what's going on inside of Wanda. I know that
because I think this takes place between Civil War and Infinity War. Like, I think that's where, in my mind, that's where the timeline takes place.
I think this was announced, and we might be both in the dark about this, but I do feel like someone said along the lines that this is after Endgame. I don't know what's going on, though. I know Wanda has more powers than we know, because this series is going to tie into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which comes out March 25th, 2022.
Good birthday present.
Is that your birthday?
21st is. But
what? Is my iPad talking to me? My iPad just started talking to me.
They're after you. This is where the machine uprising begins.
Maybe this is the Truman Show. Maybe they're gonna contact me and I'm gonna get in.
But anyway, yeah, this year like Falcon Winter Soldier comes out right before my birthday, and then next year it looks like something like Doctor Strange it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Falcon Winter Soldier trailer, if you can call it that?
Top notch. Very, very excited for it. I know you don't like the things that I'm excited for, the truly good stuff, but it's okay.
I just thought it was a lot of stuff blowing up, and that didn't really show a whole lot. That's all.
I think the dynamic between them is the best part, where it's about the banter. It's two very different personalities, two very good actors as well, that are going to make a very cool action series. And Kevin Feige said that this is going to be, I think, a 6-part movie. It's all not going to feel like a series. It's going to be one thing after another, beat by beat, is what I got from the way he was explaining that.
I like that.
You could watch it all, and it's going to feel like the 10 Commandments at once.
I like your observation a while ago when we were talking about Black Widow, and you said that they keep pushing Black Widow back, and it feels like there's some reason that Falcon Winter Soldier was supposed to come out before WandaVision, but they keep pushing Black Widow back. They're like right within a timeline of each other. So I feel like you're totally right, where there has to be something going on in Falcon Winter Soldier that involves Black Widow in some way, shape, or form.
It's typical Marvel in the way that everything is tied together. It would be like watching the Marvel movies out of order. You can't do it.
Or even watching Endgame before Infinity War.
Yeah, you just can't do it.
For sure, I'm going to watch, and for sure, I'm going to be invested in. But it's just something that, like, as of right now, I'm not super hype about.
That is honestly the Marvel project that I am most excited for, besides Spider-Man. But they didn't really talk about that since that's not their movie. It's Sony's movie.
Loki is the next one, which was very interesting. When they first pitched the show, that it was going to be Loki traveling through time, messing with different world events, I was very interested. But now it's like him in prison and his mind is hooked up to the thing. Until the end, when they showed him as DB Cooper, I was confused the entire time.
I don't think we'll understand that until it comes out. It's a crime thriller is what they called it. And they know we're confused about that. Kevin Feige even made a joke about that. He's like, if it sounds confusing, here's a trailer to maybe help you. I'm on board with it. I think it's going to be interesting to have Owen Wilson as a character in this.
I was like, what is Owen Wilson doing with Loki in an elevator? Like, I audibly told Katie that and was like, I don't know.
Well, it's exciting in a way because Loki has the ability to go through timelines now and change other things. So maybe that might matter for future projects. This next phase of Marvel to me is all about altering the timeline, right? We got Spider-Verse. We got Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness doing some weird stuff probably with that.
Yeah.
We got Loki with the cube going through these different dimensions of reality and maybe altering things there.
And Ant-Man, the new, was it the Quantum whatever?
Quantum Mania. Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantum Mania.
That sounds like an arcade game, but
It really does. I mean, that's typical Ant-Man though, right?
I'm glad the entire cast is coming back though. I'm glad that, the 4 main ones are coming back. I like those movies quite a bit.
Oh yeah, and I think that's something from Marvel that I can point to as saying I'm not really excited for this at all. And then I watched the first Ant-Man movie. I'm like, I really like Ant-Man now.
Yeah. I think we're both in the same boat with that. Well, I guess going next down the schedule is What If in summer.
It's a sleeper.
That trailer blew me away.
I think it's going to be a sleeper. I think it's going to be something that people don't necessarily get onto right away, but as it comes out, people will get hyped. My stomach keeps grumbling. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, I can't.
No, I think that it'll be enjoyable as it unfolds. But my problem is with it doesn't matter to a story. It's just, what if?
I think that is fun. Like, I think that there are some fun concepts in there. There are some that are like, meh. I think it's like a funny one, like the Peggy becoming the super soldier instead of Steve. Like,
I'm not as into zombie Captain America, I can tell you that.
Well, the one I thought was very interesting was young Black Panther getting picked up by Yondu. And I was like, Yondu, get it? Like, interesting move, but okay. I like having Yondu back. That was a thing I was like pretty excited for. But
well, it's cool that it's the actors that play the characters that are voicing them as well. That's what excites me, I suppose.
In like the Galaxy of Adventures animation style, pretty much, like
a little bit better, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it has to be a big budget TV show. So
yeah.
To round out 2021, we have Ms. Marvel, which the trailer was okay. I mean, it was something that I think it's a project that's probably under wraps quite a bit, but sounds to be more for the teenage audience overall.
It's not for me. That's all it's just not for me. It's just, I'm not excited about it. I'm not excited for Captain Marvel 2. It's just, I hated, honestly, as a film. You come at it from any perspective. As a story and the way that it was shot and handled, I really just wasn't about Captain Marvel as a movie. And it didn't excite me as a story. It just did not, as a story, compel me at all. And I'm guessing that Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel 2 will prove me wrong. But I would love to be proven wrong. I always love to love things and I hate to hate things, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, well, and that's fair. But there's a lot coming down the slate.
Ironheart's the same way. I mean, they didn't really, I know the Ironheart story. It's the same way. It's just like an offshoot character. Give me Iron Man. Why do I need Ironheart? Like,
yeah, or She-Hulk, which it's interesting to bring Abomination back with Mark Ruffalo.
See, that excites me to have this new story with characters that we have seen before. And they even have said that they're going to bring in other characters that we know throughout Marvel as surprises. What is She-Hulk? Do you know what her occupation is? They mentioned it. I forget too.
I didn't get to watch the Marvel part of it. I only watched the Lucasfilm part of the announcement last night. I didn't get to watch the Marvel part of the investors call.
After looking it up, she is a lawyer. Okay. Who else in Marvel do we know as a lawyer? Daredevil.
Oh, I wouldn't have got that.
What if they try to tie in Daredevil into the She-Hulk series? Because they're both lawyers, maybe they'll have opposing cases at some point. That could be really fun to bring in now that they have all their ducks in a row with properties, I think. Having Daredevil introduced again. It'd be fun.
Very interesting. And Doctor Strange should be interesting. I mean, it's cool that Wanda and Doctor Strange are teaming up. And then, like, the Spider-Man is probably the one that I'm most... It's just crazy hearing all these rumors and all the stuff that's coming out of it. A live-action Spider-Verse would be just out of this world.
I think Sony is purposefully releasing leaks. Yeah. Honestly, it's the vibe I get from it because they want to get people hyped for this thing because they want to keep the property. So I don't really know what's going to end up happening, but I think that it's going to be the loose cannon out of all of these. But Doctor Strange is going to be pretty cool because it's going to tie all these things together in a way. I feel like it's almost going to be as much probably as Civil War tied things up in a way for like where the future of this MCU is going. Probably the movie that's going to do that for this upcoming slate of shows and films.
Yeah, and it's tough, but we'll have to figure it out.
Rapid fire. Here we go. Shang-Chi.
Is that the one with the 10 rings?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bringing about that bullet point from Iron Man 1.
I feel the same way. I think it could be cool, and I think it's going to matter in the future, but we just don't understand it now.
Because they teased it in that behind-the-scenes thing with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3.
Yes. I think it's going to matter, but we just don't understand it yet. Eternals, next year.
I don't know very much about it, but I'll still watch it.
Same. I'm the same way. I feel like that's how we are with a lot of these things upcoming. Yeah. It's the second string of characters in the MCU.
And that's what, like, even Guardians of the Galaxy, I remember seeing the concept art and being like, and then I saw it and I was like, this is really cool.
So now that you said it, Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special.
Is that live action?
I think.
Sure.
That could be an interesting idea.
Is it the Asgardians of the Galaxy, or is that the...
It's called Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I'm pretty sure it's going to be live action.
I didn't hear anything about it. Like I said, I'll have to go back and watch the Marvel part of last night.
Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I'm into it. Taika, bringing Natalie Portman back. Yeah.
As long as Thor still matters and they don't give her all of his powers, I will enjoy it.
Yeah, and I think I trust Taika. I mean, he's proven himself, I think, twice now with Mando and Ragnarok. So
Hawkeye series?
Interested. We've been passing on the leaks on set of his daughter. And
that's not his daughter. It's not his daughter. I know. That's my main point for it.
Let's go who played his daughter, though, in Endgame. Yeah.
They called her something else. She is not the same person. Hawkeye's daughter is named Lila Barton, played by Ava Russo, and it's totally possible she'll one day be an Avenger. But that's still likely ways away. Kate Bishop's character was created in 2005. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's my main critique of it. That's not his daughter. And I guess in the comics, that's not how it worked, even though it felt like a setup in Endgame for that to happen. But unless they're going to find a good way to explain it, I'm not excited for it as much.
Yeah, we'll see.
What do you think about Moon Knight? I don't know anything about Moon Knight.
I don't know very much about I don't know anything about it either. So once I see some plot or cast or whatever,
Yeah. And with Star Wars, we are very in-depth fans who pretty much know it all. With Marvel, we are more casual fans. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Yeah, like we talked about in the last episode with Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
Yep. And then we have Secret Invasion with Nick Fury and Talos and all the Skrulls.
I'm in for that. With Nick Fury, I enjoy seeing director Krennic playing a skin-changing being. I think the Skrulls are interesting, and I think it'd be cool to see them as the bad guys. Like we saw them as good guys in Captain Marvel, and I think seeing them as bad guys would be just fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they are bad guys in this. I'm thinking that there are some bad guys and there are some good Skrulls, but I think that'll be like the fun of it is not knowing who a Skrull is and who's not a Skrull. Like that will be the mind manipulation for viewers.
The one aspect of Captain Marvel that I really do like is that Agent Coulson isn't Agent Coulson, and like you think it's him the whole time, and he's just still back at the Radio Shack. I really enjoy that. Like that's the aspect of Captain Marvel that I really enjoyed was the
we don't talk about that end credits scene though. We don't talk about that end credits scene.
That's part of the Secret Invasion.
That was my least favorite end credits scene. If I could get rid of it, I would, because I'm sorry, but Nick Fury is Nick Fury the whole time. Armor Wars, starring War Machine. Apparently, I'm just not excited. I don't know anything about it, if it's in the comics or whatever. It's a little strange. What I forgot to mention when we talked about Thor Love and Thunder is that Christian Bale is playing the villain. So that's also exciting. I enjoy Christian Bale as Batman, so I'm sure he'll do a good job in a Thor movie.
Well, and speaking of villains, I forgot to mention when we were talking about Falcon Winter Soldier that Baron Zemo is coming back as the villain for that show. I'm excited to see him back from Civil War. I thought he was really cool. They didn't kill him off and they didn't let him die.
To see what the character's next moves are after that film and how he gets out of prison or what goes on there will be interesting. How did you feel about Black Panther not being recasted?
I'm fine with it. Having his sister take over, I think, is the most logical thing. And I think they were setting that up anyways, that she was going to become a frontline hero. So I'm perfectly fine with that, with her taking the throne and being the new leader of Wakanda.
Yeah, as long as they do it in a way that's believable and realistic because we're going to make a Black Panther 2 movie. I just want them to do it right. And I feel like a lot can be mixed up in calling a movie Black Panther 2 and having it be about something completely different. Like, it obviously is the legacy of Black Panther, and Black Panther is the hero's name, but at the same time, careful.
And don't make us go through all the same stuff with all the ceremonies and stuff. I mean, we know how that stuff works from the first one, so trust the audience and their, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff.
That's how I feel as well. Fantastic Four movie.
Third time's the charm, right?
Well, it's in Disney's property now, so I think they're going to do it justice finally, and I think we will. I'm going to quote myself here. I'm going to rewind in the future to this moment. This will be the best Fantastic Four movie we have ever seen. I'm calling it right now.
It doesn't take a whole lot, but yeah.
No, it literally take like about
where
5
Chris
minutes.
Evans will play the Human Torch again, and
they asked him to do it. I bet he would. He's too busy playing Buzz Lightyear, though.
We're not gonna talk about. We don't have enough time to talk about all the Disney stuff coming out, like the Up sequel.
He rolls his eyes.
Yeah. But is that the last of the movies?
Yep, that's all of it.
Top 3, like we did with Star Wars. What's your top 3 Marvel properties that are coming out?
Falcon and Winter Soldier, Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man, because it's still far away.
Oh, I'm glad we're counting that. Okay.
Yeah,
I'd say probably Loki is my number 1.
Really?
Yeah, I think Loki. I'm really excited because it's so different. If they're playing with time and that he's jumping back and forth and like influencing historical events, because that's how they pitched it originally. So if that's what they're doing, I'm totally in for that, and I think it'd be fun just to see him doing his Loki stuff all across the timeline.
Yeah,
Loki, and then Doctor Strange too. And then number 3 is probably a tie between Falcon, Winter Soldier, and WandaVision. Because after I remembered that Baron Zemo was in Falcon, Winter Soldier, it made me more excited for it. So those 2 upcoming ones that are right here off the bat are going to be pretty cool.
I'm excited for new content any day of the week. So
yeah, well, the schedule looks like
hit me with
next week we have the finale of Mando, and then after that, gallery runs for 8 weeks, and then WandaVision picks up January 15th. Then Falcon, Winter Soldier picks up March 19th. Then Bad Batch starts in April, then Loki in May, and then What If over the summer. So it's gonna be like bam, 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 right out. We're gonna have maybe 1 week breaks between these, but
wait, so Falcon and Winter Soldier is before Bad Batch?
Yep.
They know their viewers. They know we like the same stuff. So yeah, all those nerds, they watch the same crap every day. So
well, we've discussed enough that the sun's gone down. When we started this podcast, it was light outside, and it has now become dark. So we've done this for quite a while. And I think we talked about this, and I think the internet has talked about this a lot, but we will love to hear your input. Hopefully we'll be in the live chat talking with you right now. But if you have any questions, leave them in the permanent comment section so that we can talk about them on our next show.
Thank you guys for watching this probably very, very long hype show for all of Star Wars and Marvel in the future. This is probably the most content that we're ever going to have announced at once. Unless there's more coming down the pike next year. I mean, who knows at this point?
Our Mando hype show was 2 hours long. So, I mean, it's just running in our vein of what we normally do, you know.
We're on brand. What can we say? But we hope you enjoy listening to our perspective on all of this, even though you've probably listened to countless others already discuss their thoughts and opinions. Everybody loves their own perspective, and that's what we're banking on here. So thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and if, like Sam said, this unlocked any other thoughts for you, let us know down below what you're thinking about these upcoming series. What are you excited for most?
What's your top 3 Star Wars? What's your top 3 Marvel ones? Put them in the comments, and we'll see what lines up with ours.
Yep, exactly. But stay tuned for more content analysis. Subscribe for more episodes of this podcast when I get around to editing and posting them. Just want to thank you guys for all the support and love that you've shown us.
Yeah, thank you all. It's great.
Of course, you can find me on social media everywhere at Matt Mellish on TikTok, Instagram, and where you're watching this, likely YouTube. Sam, where can the folks find you at?
You can find me at SG Sketches and Stuff on Instagram. There, I've been doing a lot of different stuff across the time. With the holidays, I've been kind of bogged down, so hasn't been a lot of posting, but you can find me there, and I'd love to talk to our fans.
Alrighty, my friends, have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you always.
See ya.